Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So, approaching the last week of the winter retreat for this year, and looking back, we've had a wide variety of teachings, recollections, reflections. I wasn't even here for the first month of it, but since coming back from the trip to Thailand, just listening to numbers of different readings and reflections from various community members, particularly Ling Pa, and feeling like we've had a very rich several months. One of the themes that's come up a couple of times that I was reflecting on a little bit was the sense of the variety of approaches, variety of instructions and teachings in the path of practice, notably around different meditation techniques or different topics for reflection, different contemplations. And getting sometimes a sense of a bit of confusion with the vast array of possibilities to delve into. The teachings are quite broad, and the ways they're interpreted and experienced and practiced by different people is also equally as broad, kind of indicating that there's a need for a different number of approaches depending on what one's particular set of mental qualities or what we bring into the practice, where we're starting, what would be useful at any one particular time, and that also evolves throughout our own individual practice. But we need a variety of approaches to work with different aspects of the path of training. Sometimes I think it can get a bit confusing where to focus one's attention at any particular point in time. And oftentimes there's a real sense of wanting to have just a template that someone that we trust and have faith in comes along and just says, here, just do it this way. Just, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, enlightenment. And, I've heard people occasionally say, just tell me what to do. Just tell me what to do. And it's, unfortunately, it's just not that easy. And it can be confusing sometimes when teachers who have discovered a particular path or style system of training, and practiced it well, and have seen excellent results from their particular path of practice, and then teach it, obviously as a way of sharing and wanting to encourage others. But sometimes it comes across as this is the way to do it. And noticed that over the years, and there was one particular time I mentioned before where within the span of a very short period of time we were visited by a couple of very senior and very well respected monks from different Theravada tradition countries, but who were both considered to be extremely well practiced and had a very confident set of approaches. And one of them, just on one small area of the practice, talking about the importance of a very focused concentration, and that it must be quite narrow and pointed at the tip of the nose. This is where you focus your attention in meditation, and that is really the best, if not the only way to really develop a sense of, or a good, strong samadhi. And then very soon after, another teacher who basically said, you'll never achieve a proper fullness of samadhi by concentrating just at the tip of the nose. You need to have a very full approach, particularly centered in the abdominal area, and then throughout the broader body. And that's the only way that you'll be able to really obtain a full sense of the completeness of samadhi. Then sometime later, another very well-revered teacher, very well accomplished, came and spent some time with the community and had a very clear, even very detailed path of practice, of a very sequential set of teachings, practices, and that once you attained this stage, then you moved on to the next stage, and all the way through certain ways of approaching jhanas and realization of past life states and the development of insight based on those qualities, and was very clear. This is the path to liberation, and all of them, were admirable practitioners, very accomplished, very realized, and it would cause confusion within the community, though, because oftentimes there were aspects that were contradictory in what the teachings were saying. So sometimes this vast array of access to well-practiced practitioners and teachers can be unsettling. I was reading just yesterday or today in the Ajahn bio, which I'm slowly going through. It's not just limited to well-practiced senior teachers. That Ajahn was recollecting that sometimes even in communities, some of the very junior members, he was talking about some, I guess, novices and young monks who flush with insights and some, real good experiences in the initial stages of their practice, were flush with a super self-confidence in what they were experiencing and feeling very clear about the path, and decided to start sharing and teaching with the other members of the community. And the kind of the short-sightedness of that, a bit of the folly of that happening. He's talking about it quite humorously, and so that happens sometimes too. And that's even happened here many years ago. We had a situation where a young anagarika was having some very strong, different kinds of samadhi experiences, and became very convinced of his own realizations, and started teaching others and giving instruction and trying to counsel people on where they were on the path and what they had attained. And a couple of the community members were kind of impressed and wanting to engage in that way with him. And then there were also the ones that were not interested in what he had wanted to offer them, and felt a bit annoyed, and some people feeling a bit intimidated. So it was, in some cases, eventually what happened is that things started to deteriorate, and the whole thing started to fall apart. The internal structures couldn't hold up, and unfortunately, it was kind of actually sad and difficult. And I happened to be the only 8 Vasa senior monk in charge, because everybody else had gone off to Thailand for a month or two, and so having to deal with that. But it kind of all caved in a very unfortunate way, and he ended up needing to leave. So these kinds of things can be confusing, whether it's from most of the times, obviously, from a well-practiced teacher who has a set of teachings that they want to share, rightfully so. So how to handle all of this and craft it so that it's actually useful for one's own particular situation without getting drawn into views and opinions and strategies and this way is the only way, or this way is the best way. And how to be sensitive to what one's own status is, where one is at, and to be able to use what other teachers and what other teachings are all about as a way of informing one and instructing one, but not overwhelming one when there seems to be contradictions. One of the things that I always appreciated about most of the teachers in our tradition, Luangpa Pasano being right at the top of the list, with encouraging us to really look at our own practice and evaluate on an ongoing basis what the results of what we're doing actually is. To try different approaches at different times, stick with them for a while, and monitor, evaluate, see what effect they have, so that we really develop a sense of investigation, exploration, and evaluation of the things that we bring in, rather than just trying to follow a prescribed regimen. I find that using questions can be very helpful sometimes, and one of the primary ones at this, at a stage when you're just wanting to kind of step back and reevaluate would be along the lines of, and Ajahn Jeff uses this a lot. It's essentially a quote from the Buddha before he embarked on his path of something like, what when I engage in it, or when I put my mind to it, will be for my long-term welfare and benefit, and for the long-term welfare and benefit of others. What when I engage in it, what when I put my attention on it, will be for the long-term benefit. And the emphasis being on the long term. What will make me contented, peaceful, happy over the long term, rather than just short-term gain. And it implies that there are also some benchmarks in the teachings from the Buddha. Were quite specific in some ways of giving us some benchmarks. The Buddha did give some specific kinds of instructions, but more general principles. Some of the more specific guidelines come out, say, in the Satipatthana Sutta or the Kayagata Sati Sutta, where there's some more delineation of a path of certain factors to really bring up for contemplation, reflection. But oftentimes they're in the framework of qualities and guidelines, and this looking for benchmarks is an important one. So we need to have some idea of what it is to measure against, the effects of what it is that we're practicing. So there's different renditions of some of the benchmarks, but oftentimes they include qualities like finding out for yourself, or examining within yourself, do these qualities exist inside of me? Qualities like contentment. Are we contented with different aspects of contentment, like contentment with just the four requisites, with leading a simple life? Do we have just the minimum of what we need without a lot of excess? So quality of contentment with material requisites. But also an inner sense of contentment, a sense of feeling like, oh, okay, this is this life, this style, this practice, it's producing some results that feel good, and I can feel good about that. I can feel happy about that. I can feel contented with how things are going. So is our practice leading to a sense of contentment? Is it leading to a sense of modesty? Modesty is one of those qualities as a benchmark, so that we're less and less concerned about our place in the world, how we might seem to others, getting praise, those kinds of worldly concerns, and we're just more interested in the internal qualities that we're developing, and we don't care so much about our status in the world, or how we appear to others, or making a name for ourselves, and content with being just more interior, more involved in the interior of our lives, and not having to become anything special. So a lessening of that need for identity, for a sense of worldly success, all of those kinds of concerns that bring us out into the external world more. So a sense of modesty, not self-aggrandizement. Sense of not wanting to be burdensome, wanting to have enough simplicity in our lives, feeling like we don't want to have a big impact that we don't want to have to, use resources that we don't need to tread lightly in the world, to be unburdensome to the people who support us. It's a quality, that's a benchmark quality to ask ourselves about. Energy for practice, our interest in energy on the rise, so that we have a sense of commitment, a sense of faith to keep us moving, sense of interest to bring up that ongoing refreshment of interest and energy to keep up. So that's a benchmark to look for. Sense of growing peacefulness, of course. Does the mind settle more easily? Is there a sense of inner fulfillment that starts to come about from a stillness, a peacefulness in the mind? Another benchmark. Non-complication. The world just starts to become a bit simpler and not quite so convoluted and not so proliferative. So looking at these interior states of mind, there's other ones that are mentioned too, but having in mind what it is that we're looking at as a goal of practice, benchmarks in our practice. So as we're starting to review what's going on in our minds and our practice, and trying to choose a path of practice, at least for this particular time, we need to start really evaluating, what is the state of my mind now? What is it that what do I really need? What do I need now as I'm about to practice some meditation, formally in the sitting posture, maybe you're getting out on the walking path. We need to ask ourselves another question of what's it like right now, and what do I need to gain a sense of more peace or more stability or contentment in my practice right here, in my state of mind right now. Sometimes, we have a busy day or a lot of engagement, whether it's at the monastery or in the world, in the daily life, a lot of stimulation, conversations that are exciting or interesting or difficult or painful, and challenging sometimes. Many of us are occasionally involved in challenging, difficult situations, and I know some people who are here tonight are, have difficult, challenging living situations, or have decisions that are being made now, where to land, what to do, and or feeling ungrounded, maybe not having a real strong sense of stability in our lives, and those are all challenging mind states that disrupt our quest for happiness and peace. And so, what to do with that when you're trying to practice some formal meditation or just enjoy a little bit of simple peacefulness, and so to really use that questioning, what do I need to turn my mind to right now to bring about a sense of greater ease, a greater contentment right here, right now? What would be useful for me to reflect on? And a necessary component of that is being able to establish in one's own mind that sense of mindfulness and self-awareness that can actually see what the current situation is and what the needs might be. And that kind of all-around awareness that's so important to maintain not only in formal times of meditation, but in our daily life, that sense of presence, of what's happening right now, what's happening right now, and focusing on this body, this bodily presence as the way that we can really read the mind. We can know the mind states through how they manifest in the body. So just constantly bringing ourselves back to this present moment bodily experience, and then asking ourselves also, what's the mood of the mind? What is happening right here and now? Where do I need to start to focus, to bring a sense of ease, well-being into my life? So to ask that and see what comes up, see what recollection might come to mind to help bring a sense of ease, a sense of gratitude for the good people that we have around us, or a sense of faith in the teachings of the Buddha, the Dhamma teachings themselves, or the refuge in the Sangha, the people that are practicing well, or a sense of appreciation for generosity, for the guidelines of sila that we've been able to follow and maintain. Whatever it is that brings a sense of refuge, sense of relief, a sense of contentment into the mind, right in this very moment. Ask that question: what is it that would be useful? Maybe a memory of a time when somebody was kind to you, the positive qualities that we seek. Whatever it is that brings a sense of ease and well-being. So then we start to look at ways to develop the path of practice. Right effort. Right effort is a major component of the Eightfold Path that actually runs through all of the aspects of the path. We have to use right effort to abandon and prevent unwholesome states from arising, and we have to develop skillful states, wholesome states of mind that we haven't experienced yet, and maintain the ones that we have developed. So right effort in the practice is a combination of both abandoning the unskillful and developing the skillful aspects of the practice. And it runs through the whole gamut of sila, samadhi, panya. We need to abandon and develop qualities all along the path. So, like with sila, the precepts are definitely stated in the in what's kind of the abandonment mode, abandoning these particular actions of body and speech that will obstruct us, that would be considered leading to unwholesome states of mind, so that we abandon certain harmful actions. And less talked about, but there are counterparts that you can look at that are developing the opposite qualities of the positive state, so that you have both abandoning and developing within the realm of sila, so that we abandon the taking of life. And we can develop a sense of compassion and sensitivity to all living beings and want to help them live a meaningful life in whatever way we can by not harming them. So we restrain ourselves from causing harm by taking life, and we encourage an internal development, all kind of developing the mind state, the right intention of harmlessness, non-cruelty, and compassion for all beings. So around that first precept, there's both the abandoning and the developing. Second precept of not taking that which is not given. We abandon that kind of mind that feels free to help ourselves to whatever we want. And developing the opposite quality of say, giving, of generosity, of sharing what we have. We just had a lovely offering at our mealtime today. Many of you know Warun, the young 8-year-old boy who comes with his mother and father every now and then, maybe once a month or so, and he's been a stalwart giver of his piggy bank allowance from at least a few years ago, several years ago, and today he came up and offered Lungpa $100 for the monastery. You know, this is an 8-year-old kid, and it's just, you know, just the glow in his face as he did it, and everybody. I was just looking around the room, not only at Lungpa, but you know, the rest of the sangha and the lay community, and everyone was just so uplifted and appreciative of that. Just the power of that kind of innocent, pure generosity coming straight from the heart. You know, if that didn't affect your mind, then not much could. I don't think. It was just so lovely. So the power of developing generosity and appreciating it when others display it too. The third precept, you know, abandoning sexual misconduct, not taking advantage of people in a sensual way, and developing the opposite qualities of respect for our relationships with people, caring, concern, but not using people. Our speech, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from lying especially, telling falsehoods, but also developing wholesome speech, really delighting in truthfulness, but also knowing time and place when talking with people or giving feedback, developing a sense of how to encourage using speech, and not only restraint, which is very important with speech, but also knowing when to skillfully use it as a tool for bringing out wholesome states of mind. So, right effort in the development of sila, both in abandoning and developing. And just reflecting on that, maybe sometimes it's a good way to spend a meditation period if that's something that would inspire and relax and soothe the mind when you're not quite sure what to do. Reflect on those aspects of sila and what you've been able to abandon, what you've been able to develop. Right effort in terms of samadhi, often centered around the abandoning of the five hindrances and development of counterparts to those five hindrances. Kamachanda, sense desire, reflecting on the painfulness of that, and seeing when the mind is activated by sense desire, particularly as one sits down or starts walking on the path in a formal period, asking oneself, is sense desire present, and what does it feel like? At first it might seem kind of exciting, but when you look at it, it's really agitating to the mind that's intent on peace. So just reflecting on the downside, reflecting on the disadvantage of the presence of sensual desire. And then imagining, what is it like to be free from sense desire? What are some qualities that one experiences when there's a coolness of the heart? A sense of contentment, of not wanting, having what we need, not needing to seek stimulating, pleasurable experience in the sense realm. A feeling of repleteness, just not wanting. So what might that feel like? What does that feel like? Encouraging that development, using techniques if we need to kind of stop the proliferation, to cool the senses, the asubha practices or the reflections on the fleetingness of sense pleasure. How long can this really last, this pursuit of happiness through the outside stimulation? Even the more refined ones of intellectual speculation or the arts, oftentimes, or music, different things like that are more refined than the grosser sensual pleasures. But reflecting on that, as sublime as they may be, there's limits, and it's dependent on causes and conditions being present in a certain way. And then realizing that one can have a great sense of contentment without even that, just by letting go of that need for sensory stimulation, activation, that coolness of the heart without that. Or reflecting to see if there's aversion present, ill will, and reflecting on the disadvantages of that. How does that feel? It's a very unpleasant feeling, agitated, boiling, in one of the similes, like boiling water. And what does it feel like when that isn't there? Noticing when that's absent. So abandoning the aversion through recollecting the disadvantage, and reflecting on qualities that bring up a sense of kindness, acceptance, patience, and feeling the effect of those kinds of developing those kinds of recollections, a sense of gentleness, a sense of warmth that can come from that, and imagining even what those feel like. What does it feel like just to have a sense of kindness and gentleness for the beings around us? It's a very soothing, peaceful state of mind. So developing that. Drowsiness, the dullness of mind that one can experience, often with a tinge of wanting to escape, check out, and kind of the unpleasantness of that, and trying to work towards abandoning the causes and conditions that lead to that. Even sometimes as simple as reducing the amount of food so that we're not so drowsy during the afternoon. Getting proper rest, but not too much. Overindulgence in sleep can actually lead to more drowsiness and dullness. And bringing a sense of freshness into the mind. What would it be like to have a sense of energy and activation and, like a cool breeze coming through on a hot day that perks one up and brings a sense of alertness, freshness to the mind, spaciousness. So actively encouraging that, working on ways to bring up energy, abandoning the dullness and sloth, torpor kind of mind. Agitation, restlessness, and we want to abandon that and develop the sense of stillness, of peace. And asking ourselves, well, what can I look towards, what can I look into in the interior to help instill that sense of stillness? Sometimes just using words to calm oneself down will induce that sense of stillness. Just a mantra. I remember Ajahn Chandako once was saying that his meditation mantra was peace. So just repeating something that brings the mind to a sense of stillness. Encouraging that, developing that. And the hindrance of doubt. It's a hard one, it's an uncomfortable one, the flip-flopping of the mind that goes back and forth, and it's one that we do need to work towards abandoning in our right effort. It can be very debilitating, not being able to have a sense of faith and security in our practice and what it is that we're doing, how we approach it. And so to contemplate the alternative of having a sense of security, a sense of confidence, by reflecting on the teachings, by exploring the doubt itself as a mind state, an energetic mind state, getting to know it, accept it when it's there, but not buy into it as truth. So looking at it and being with it, as with all of these hindrances, accepting them in a sense that they're a result of past habitual ways of training the mind in these hindrances, but that we can untrain it as well. And we don't need to take it personally, but to clearly help cultivate the opposite state of mind, one that results in clarity and confidence and a sense of security. And realizing that this is all possible. So this is right effort in the development of a peaceful state of mind, the development of samadhi. So again, these are not necessarily techniques, but they're more reflections, looking at qualities, what's present, what might be more skillful, what are some benchmarks to look for, and to train oneself to, and to experiment and to find out what works for me, not having to rely on somebody else to say do this, do that, but to experiment, practice, and find out for yourself. Also, the development of panya, discernment, wisdom, needs both right effort to abandon unskillful ways that we view the world and to develop right view, essentially. So looking at the wrong views that we hold, if you will. The Buddha talks about samadhi in both the mundane and transcendent aspects, and talks about what is wrong view, what is right view. So reviewing that within ourselves. And what is it that we need to abandon? The wrong views of that, oh, there is, nothing I do makes any difference. So what's the use of it? Essentially there's no results, there's no karma, um, or a wrong view of, like holding that, this one life is the end of it all. The kind of once this body dies, that's it, the end of the realm of experience. It's another view that can lead to harmfulness in some ways, or that there's no benefits of generosity, certain qualities like that in the traditional mundane wrong view, but to reflect also on the opposite, to really, not necessarily as a state of holding a belief, but a reflection. It's like, okay, well, there is the results of action, of what I do, what I say, what I think makes a difference in my experience of suffering or not suffering. I do have a modicum of ability to respond in the moment, to readjust how I see life, and what I can do in body, speech, and mind to make my experience with less suffering. So really seeing reflecting on the benefits of that sense of knowing and the power of intentional action, of karma, or reflecting, even though we may not be able to see beyond this particular life, just reflecting on, where do I want my mind to be at the time that I die? Just in the chance that there is a future existence that this mind stream keeps propelling through, that this, the powers of greed, hatred, delusion, confusion have a certain momentum that maybe goes beyond this particular life and body. And if that's the case, maybe I don't know it, but if that's the case, what do I want to develop? Where do I want to be when this body and mind starts to implode? So again, using that as a reflection, to abandon the wrong view and to encourage the right view in that mundane way. And then also in the more wisdom teachings, the reflections that we start to develop in the development of discernment, wisdom, in the more transcendent way, looking at how we might abandon our wrong views around how we relate to the world, this looking for this constant mind of looking for stability in a world that's inherently unstable, looking for permanence and, in a world that's inherently impermanent, changing, looking for a sense of control, personal control, in a world that oftentimes very much is not under our control, both the external parts of the world external to us and also the results, the inevitable results of past action coming to fruition. And sometimes there's a sense of wanting to be able to control that, but vipaka is often something we just have to accept, what's happening right now. But realizing, of course, that there is some modicum of control in how we respond and where we go from here. So, but that developing that sense of anatta, that sense of this is impersonal, looking at our wrong assumptions of seeking satisfactoriness and contentment in samsara, in the realm of what's out there in the world, we think that we're going to find satisfaction in the realm of conditions, we're going to be very disappointed. So that's in a sense, it's a wrong view. The sense of, that there is ultimate contentment in anything that's arisen through causes and conditions, and developing the right view of impermanence, really working with anicca sanya, really developing reflections on how to see the transience of the world of conditions around us, even down to the moments in our meditation when things are quiet and still enough that we can watch mind states and moods and thoughts and feelings just as they arise, just as they have their momentum, not getting involved, not adding to them, and watching them pass away right here, right now, in this very moment. So developing that anicca sanya, and developing, that sense of distance from all the phenomena that we're experiencing, the non-identification. These are reflecting that these are not who I am. These are just feelings and perceptions and memories and thoughts, moods arising and passing away that don't have a solid base of ownership. They're not ours. They arise out of their causes and conditions and pass away in the same. So how can there be a sense of ownership, a sense of self, a sense of control over those? And developing the realization that because of that, they are inherently unsatisfactory because they're arising, passing away, not under our control. How can we find lasting satisfaction in any of these experiences related to the world? So this is developing the understanding, the right view, the insight into these characteristics. Another aspect of right effort, of abandoning the wrong views, developing the right views. And then it seems like there's, at some point, with the maturation of these reflections, that that quality of dispassion does start to develop, and when that happens, we can start moving more towards actually abandoning, relinquishing all of these things that we've even been developing, all of the skillful qualities that are part of the path that support us, all the aspects of right effort in terms of developing. We can start to relinquish those too, because they've served their purpose. This is, quite far down the path for most of us at this time, and we're not ready to abandon our skillful efforts at this point for the development of wholesome states. But at some point, at the full maturation, even those skillful developments can be let go of. We don't need to set them up as causes and conditions any longer, because the work has been done, and we can move towards just a complete relinquishment of all fabrications, of all structures, as the mind starts to let go, relinquish, and realize that peace that isn't dependent on any of that. So, kind of started out with, what to choose in terms of a path of practice or a meditation technique, and just kind of reflecting that, the Buddha's looking more at the qualities of mind, the qualities of practice to develop the results of the practice, learning how to evaluate that for ourselves with these benchmarks, developing qualities and abandoning unskillful qualities, developing good qualities, rather than looking for a template or a specific set of step-by-step instructions for the practice. So hopefully over the past few months, I've had some experience and ability to develop these qualities for reflection. And hopefully we'll continue as we move into the last week of our precious retreat and transition into a more engaged routine in another week or so, but to use the upcoming time to consolidate and reflect on some of these teachings that we've learned the past few months. So I'll leave it there for tonight. So this evening, for those who wish, can continue with the vigil, walking meditation, sitting meditation, as people feel comfortable, moved, and we'll have tea at the